I was halfway to the taxi stand, my sensible shoes clicking against the polished airport floor, when I heard Tommy's voice boom across the terminal. "Grandma Rose. What the hell? Let me back up, honey. You need the whole story to understand why your 78-year-old grandmother was making a run for it through LaGuardia, like some kind of geriatric fugitive. It started that morning when my son Michael showed up at my door with that fake smile he's been perfecting since he was 12 and broke my favorite lamp. Ready for our family adventure, Mom? Adventure. Right. Like I was born yesterday. They hustled me into that fancy airport lounge. All marble and leather chairs that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Just relax here, Grandma, my daughter-in-law Sarah cooed, patting my hand like I was a confused child. We'll handle all the check-in details. Handle the details. That should have been my first clue. 2 hours I sat there, watching business travelers tap on their phones and families rush past the windows. 2 whole hours while that young attendant kept shooting me looks like I was something pathetic that had washed up on shore. That's when I heard her on the phone. We have an elderly passenger who seems to have been... Well, it looks like she might have been abandoned. Abandoned? Me. I was about to give that girl a piece of my mind when I spotted him through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Tommy, my eldest grandson, the one who was supposedly handling our complicated itinerary. He wasn't at any check-in counter. He was planted at Murphy's Sports Bar, a beer in one hand and his phone in the other, laughing like he didn't have a care in the world. And there was Sarah, perched on a bar stool next to him. And Michael, gesturing wildly at the TV screen showing some baseball game. The whole damn family, having themselves a regular party while I sat in that lounge like an unwanted piece of luggage. Something hot and sharp twisted in my chest. Not hurt, I'm too old for hurt. Fury. Pure crystalline fury. I stood up so fast my purse strap caught on the chair arm and nearly sent my reading glasses flying. The attendant looked up from her phone call, probably ready to offer me another cup of tea and more pity. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady as Sunday morning. "Where's the ladies' room?" She pointed toward the main terminal, and I walked out of that lounge like I owned the place. Which, given how much money my family was probably spending to keep me parked there, I practically did. The main terminal buzzed with life. Real life. People going places, doing things, making choices. Not sitting in holding patterns, waiting for other people to decide their fate. I made it halfway across the departure area before the reality hit me. I didn't have my boarding pass. I didn't have my ID. I didn't even know where we were supposedly going, because nobody had bothered to tell me. They had everything, and I had nothing but my purse and a growing certainty that this whole family vacation was a setup. A memory surfaced, Sarah whispering to Michael last week about the facility and the consultation and what's best for her. I'd pretended to be napping, but I heard every word. The nursing home. They were taking me to look at a nursing home. Well, 2 could play at this game. I found a quiet spot near the baggage claim and pulled out my phone. My sister Dorothy answered on the second ring. "Rose? What are you doing calling from the airport? Aren't you supposed to be on vacation? Change of plans. How fast can you get to LaGuardia?" 20 minutes later, I was sliding into the back of Dorothy's ancient Cadillac, watching the airport shrink in the rear window. My phone had been buzzing non-stop. Michael, Sarah, Tommy, even my youngest grandson Pete, who was probably wondering where the hell his grandmother had disappeared to. I turned the phone off. "You want to tell me what this is about?" Dorothy asked, eyeing me in the rearview mirror. "They were taking me to a nursing home," I said simply. "Not for a visit. For a consultation." Dorothy's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "Those sons of... language. They can't do that without your permission." They weren't planning to ask for it. We drove in silence for a while, the city sliding past outside the windows. Finally, Dorothy spoke again. "What do you want to do?" That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want to do? For months, maybe years, I'd been letting them make my decisions. What I should eat, where I should live, who I should see. When did I stop being Rose Patterson, retired librarian and mother of 3, and become just grandma? A problem to be managed. "I want to go home," I said. "My home. And I want to make my own damn decisions about my life." Dorothy smiled in the mirror. "That's my sister." By the time we pulled into my driveway, my phone had 17 missed calls and 12 text messages. I scrolled through them as Dorothy helped me with my purse. "Michael. Mom, where are you? We're worried sick. Sarah. Rose, please call us. We can explain everything. Tommy. Grandma, this isn't funny anymore. Pete. Are you okay? Everyone's freaking out." I typed back one message and sent it to all of them. I'm fine. I'm home. We'll talk when you're ready to treat me like an adult instead of a burden. Then I turned the phone off again and went inside to make myself a cup of real coffee, not that watery stuff they served in the lounge. Dorothy settled into my kitchen chair, the same one she'd been claiming for 40 years. So what's the plan, Rose? I looked around my kitchen, at the wallpaper I'd chosen, the dishes I'd collected, the photos of grandchildren who apparently thought I was too old to make my own choices. This was my life. My space. My decision. The plan, I said, measuring coffee grounds with steady hands, is to remind them that I'm not dead yet. And until I am, I decide what happens to Rose Patterson. Dorothy laughed, the same laugh that had gotten us in trouble in grade school. This should be interesting. Outside, a car door slammed. Then another. Through the kitchen window, I could see Michael's SUV in my driveway and 3 very unhappy-looking family members climbing out. I poured 2 cups of coffee and set them on the table. Let the fun begin, I murmured, and went to answer my front door. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. You'd think after my great escape from LaGuardia 3 months ago, my family would have learned their lesson about treating me like a child. But honey, some people are slower learners than others. This time they were making amends. Or so they claimed. Mom, we want to make it up to you, Michael said, standing in my living room with that same guilty expression he'd worn after the airport incident. We've planned the perfect trip. Remember how Dad always wanted to go to Hawaii? My heart did a little flutter at the mention of Frank. 52 years of marriage, and he'd never stopped talking about those islands. We'd saved and planned and postponed that trip so many times. First for the kids' college funds, then for the grandkids' needs, then for his medical bills. By the time we could finally afford it, Frank was too sick to travel. We booked the whole family, Sarah added, and I noticed she couldn't quite meet my eyes. Good. At least she had the decency to feel guilty about the nursing home scheme. First-class tickets, ocean view rooms at the Grand Wailea. Everything Dad would have wanted. Tommy stepped forward, my grandson who'd been so eager to abandon me in that sports bar. We want you to have this, Grandma. For Grandpa's memory. I looked at these 3 faces, my son, his wife, my grandson, and saw something I didn't like. They were trying too hard. Smiling too bright. Speaking too carefully, like they were handling explosives. But Frank's dream trip. How could I say no to that? When do we leave? I asked. The relief on their faces was almost comical. Tomorrow morning, Michael said. Early flight out of JFK. We'll pick you up at 6. And that's how I found myself at 7:30 the next morning, sitting in yet another airport lounge. This time it was Terminal B at JFK, and the chairs were slightly less fancy but no less comfortable. Sarah had walked me to the entrance personally, her arm linked through mine like we were old friends. Just wait here, Rose, she'd said, using that sugary voice that made my teeth ache. The family lounge is so much quieter than the main terminal. We'll grab everyone's boarding passes and meet you back here in just a few minutes. A few minutes stretched into an hour. Then, too, I tried to read my paperback, the latest Louise Penny mystery that Dorothy had recommended, but I couldn't concentrate. Something felt off. The same prickly sensation I'd had before Michael showed up that day 3 months ago to take me on our family adventure. The lounge attendant, a young man with kind eyes and a patient smile, kept checking on me. Can I get you anything else, Mrs. Patterson? Another coffee? Something to eat? Actually, I said, closing my book, could you page my family for me? Michael Patterson, Sarah Patterson, Thomas Patterson? They should be somewhere in the terminal. He disappeared behind the counter, and I heard him on the intercom system. Paging Michael Patterson, Sarah Patterson, Thomas Patterson. Please contact the Admiral's Club in Terminal B. We waited. Nothing. He tried again 10 minutes later. Still nothing. A cold knot was forming in my stomach. What if something had happened to them? Airport security, medical emergency, terrorist threat? My imagination, sharpened by years of worry and too many crime novels, started running wild. Sir, I said, standing up and gathering my purse, I think I need to go look for them myself. Are you sure, Mrs. Patterson? I can keep trying to. I'm sure. The terminal was a maze of shops and restaurants, departure gates stretching in both directions like the arms of a giant octopus. I walked slowly, my sensible shoes clicking against the polished floor, scanning every face for someone familiar. That's when I saw the departure board. Hawaiian Airlines Flight 47 to Honolulu. departing 10:15 a.m. Gate C, 23. Gate C, 23. Terminal C. I stopped dead in the middle of the corridor, people flowing around me like water around a stone. Terminal C. Not Terminal B, where Sarah had deposited me like a piece of forgotten luggage. My mind started working, putting pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle. The two bright smiles. The careful words. The way Sarah couldn't meet my eyes. I found the airport shuttle and rode it to Terminal C in silence, my hands folded in my lap, my thoughts churning. The Hawaiian Airlines gate was easy to find, a cluster of excited families with leis and beach bags, the air humming with vacation energy. And there they were. Michael paced near the windows, his phone pressed to his ear. Sarah sat in the waiting area, her head in her hands. Tommy stood at the gate counter, gesturing frantically at the airline employee. I couldn't hear what they were saying from across the terminal, but their body language told the whole story. Panic. Fear. Guilt. I found an empty seat about 20 feet away, partially hidden behind a support pillar, and opened my book. Louise Penny's Inspector Gamache was investigating a murder in a small Quebec village, but I wasn't really reading. I was listening. Can't find her anywhere, Michael was saying into his phone. We've checked every lounge in Terminal B twice. The security cameras show her leaving the Admiral's Club around 9:30, Tommy added, his voice carrying across the waiting area. But then nothing. She just disappeared. Sarah looked up from her hands. Maybe we should call the police. And tell them what? Michael snapped. That we left our elderly mother in the wrong terminal on purpose? The wrong terminal on purpose. I felt that familiar hot twist in my chest, but this time it was mixed with something else. Disappointment. Bone-deep, heartbreaking disappointment. It was supposed to be a simple test, Sarah whispered, but her voice carried in the busy terminal. See if she could figure out how to find us. Prove she was competent enough to handle a real vacation. Well, congratulations, Tommy said bitterly. Now we've lost her completely. Great test, Mom. A test. They'd turned Frank's dream trip, my husband's memory, into a test of my mental capacity. I closed my book and stood up, my movements slow and deliberate. My family was too caught up in their panic to notice me walking toward them until I was right there, close enough to see the exact moment recognition dawned on their faces. Michael's phone clattered to the floor. Sarah's mouth fell open. Tommy actually took a step backward. Looking for someone? I asked, my voice as calm as Sunday morning. Mom! Michael rushed toward me. Thank God you're okay. We were so worried. Where did you? Find you. I finished. Well, Michael, it turns out that even at 78, I can still read a departure board. Funny how that works. Sarah stood up slowly, her face pale. Rose, we can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. I looked at each of them in turn. A test, was it? To see if I was competent enough for a real vacation. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Around us, other families chatted and laughed, excited about their trips to paradise. Their honest trips taken with honest intentions. We were worried, Michael said finally. After what happened at LaGuardia, we thought. You thought you'd trick me into proving my worth? I interrupted. Use your father's dream as bait for your little experiment? Tommy found his voice. Grandma, it wasn't like that. Wasn't it? I reached into my purse and pulled out my boarding pass. The one Sarah had never bothered to show me, probably thinking I was too confused to ask for it. Hawaiian Airlines Flight 47, departing from Gate C 23. Not Terminal B, Terminal C. Where you've all been waiting for the past 2 hours, probably congratulating yourselves on how clever you were. I held the boarding pass out to Sarah. Here, you can have this back. She stared at it like it was a snake. What do you mean? I mean I won't be needing it. I'm taking the next flight home instead. The words hung in the air between us. Around us, the final boarding call for our flight echoed through the terminal. Final call for Hawaiian Airlines Flight 47 to Honolulu. All passengers should be on board at this time. Mom, please, Michael said, and for the first time, I heard genuine distress in his voice. Not guilt, not panic, real pain. Don't do this. Come with us. We'll make it right. Will you? I looked at him, this man I'd raised from a squalling infant to the father of 2 grown children. Will you stop treating me like I'm already gone? Will you start including me in decisions about my own life, instead of making them for me? Yes, he said immediately. Yes, we will. Will you stop testing me like I'm taking some kind of dementia exam every time we spend time together? Sarah stepped forward. Rose, we never meant. Will you? I repeated, looking directly at her. Yes, she whispered. I turned to Tommy. And you? Will you stop looking at me like I'm a burden you're stuck with? My grandson's face crumpled. Grandma, I never. You're not a burden. You're the strongest person I know. Then start treating me like it. The gate area had emptied while we talked. The airline employee was making pointed gestures toward the jetway, clearly waiting for us to make a decision. Ma'am, she called. The flight is ready to depart. Are you boarding? I looked at my family, really looked at them. Michael with his worry lines and guilty conscience. Sarah with her good intentions wrapped in terrible execution. Tommy with his young face that reminded me so much of his grandfather. They'd hurt me, disappointed me, treated me like a child when I'd earned the right to be treated as an adult. But they were also here. Despite their flawed methods, they'd planned this trip because they knew how much it had meant to Frank. They'd panicked when they thought they'd lost me, not because it would be inconvenient, but because they cared. Family, I'd learned over 7 decades, wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, even when you got it wrong. It was about second chances and third chances, and sometimes fourth chances. But it was also about respect, and boundaries, and making sure that love didn't become control. I'll make you a deal, I said finally. I'll get on that plane with you. We'll take Frank's dream trip together, and we'll make it beautiful. We'll honor his memory the way it deserves to be honored. Hope flickered in their faces. But, I continued, and the hope dimmed slightly. When we get back, things change. No more tests. No more tricks. No more decisions about my life made without me. I'm still Rose Patterson, not just your elderly relative who needs managing. Are we clear? Crystal clear, Michael said. Absolutely, Sarah added. Yes, ma'am, Tommy said, and there was something in his voice that reminded me of the little boy who used to help me bake cookies. I looked at the boarding pass in Sarah's trembling hand. Well then, I believe we have a plane to catch. The airline employee smiled with relief as we hurried toward the gate. Cutting it close, folks. Story of our lives, I murmured, and for the first time in months, I heard my family laugh. Really laugh, without guilt or worry or hidden agendas. As we walked down the jetway toward our flight to Hawaii, I thought about Frank. How proud he would have been to see me standing up for myself. How happy he would be to know that his dream trip was finally happening, even if it had taken a few detours to get here. Sometimes the best journeys, I reflected, are the ones that teach you something about yourself along the way. And sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who need the firmest reminders about how to show that love. I settled into my first-class seat and accepted the champagne the flight attendant offered. Through the small window, New York City spread out below us, getting smaller as we climbed toward the clouds. To Frank, I whispered, raising my glass toward the sky. We finally made it, sweetheart. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. You'd think after Hawaii, after all those promises about treating me with respect and including me in decisions, my family would have turned over a new leaf. But honey, old habits die harder than cockroaches in a nuclear winter. 6 months later, there I was again. Different airport, same song and dance. This time it was Chicago O'Hare, and we were supposedly heading to Sarah's sister's wedding in Denver. I say supposedly because by now I'd learned to take everything my family told me with a grain of salt the size of Lake Michigan. Mom, just wait here in the Admiral's Club, Michael said, patting my shoulder like I was a well-behaved spaniel. We've got some complicated booking issues to sort out with the airline. You know how these things are, changes and upgrades and all that technical stuff. Technical stuff. Right. Like I hadn't been booking my own flights since before he was born. Sarah stood beside him, shifting her weight from foot to foot, avoiding my eyes just like she had before the Hawaii test. That should have been my first clue, but I was tired from the early morning drive to the airport, and frankly, I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. How long will you be? I asked, settling into one of those leather chairs that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Oh, not long at all, Sarah said quickly. Too quickly. Maybe 30 minutes? An hour at most. Tommy nodded along like a bobblehead doll. The gate agents are really busy today, Grandma. Wedding season, you know. They left me there with a cup of coffee and a forced smile, and I watched them walk away through the glass doors. Something about their body language bothered me. The way they huddled together immediately, the quick glances back at the lounge, the hurried whispers. I tried to shake off the uneasiness and picked up a magazine. 20 minutes crawled by. The coffee got cold, The magazine, some fashion thing full of teenagers wearing clothes that cost more than my car, couldn't hold my attention. That's when he approached me. A young man in an airline uniform, tall and lean with dark hair and kind eyes that looked familiar somehow. He was carrying a tablet and wore the sort of professional smile that airline employees perfect after dealing with thousands of cranky passengers. "Mrs. Henderson?" he said, and my blood ran cold. Henderson. My maiden name. The name I hadn't used in over 50 years. "I'm afraid there's been a problem with your booking," he continued, his voice gentle but serious. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" My heart sank straight through the expensive carpet and into the basement of O'Hare. Were they really trying to leave me behind entirely this time? Had my family finally decided I was too much trouble to bother with? What kind of problem? I managed to ask, my voice steadier than I felt. He glanced around the lounge, then pulled up a chair next to mine. "Ma'am, this might be a little confusing, but I need to ask, are you Rose Henderson Patterson?" "I'm Rose Patterson," I said carefully. I was Rose Henderson a very long time ago. Something shifted in his expression, the professional mask slipping away to reveal something warmer, more personal. "Aunt Rose." I stared at him, my mind spinning. Aunt Rose. Nobody had called me that in. "Marcus," I whispered. His face broke into a grin that suddenly looked exactly like his father at age 8. "Yes, ma'am. It's me. Marcus. Little Marcus Henderson, my nephew Bobby's boy." The last time I'd seen him, he'd been maybe 10 years old, all knees and elbows and gap-toothed smiles at Bobby's funeral. That had been Lord 15 years ago? Maybe more? "What in the world are you doing here?" I asked, though part of me was already starting to understand. "I work for United," he said, gesturing to his uniform. "Have for about 5 years now. I was reviewing passenger manifests this morning when I saw your name, Rose Henderson, flagged for special assistance. The notation said family unavailable, passenger requires supervision due to early-stage dementia." The words hit me like a slap. Early-stage dementia? Marcus's expression darkened. "I knew it had to be you. How many Rose Hendersons could there be flying out of Chicago today? But the dementia thing, I knew that was garbage. You were sharp as a tack when I was a kid, and from what Dad used to say before he passed, you still are." Bobby had passed. My heart squeezed. I'd lost touch with that side of the family after Frank died, gotten so wrapped up in my own grief and my own children's lives that I'd let those connections slip away. "When did your father?" 3 years ago, Marcus said softly. "Cancer. But he talked about you all the time, Aunt Rose. Told me stories about growing up with you and Mom, about how you were the toughest, smartest person he knew. Said you once talked your way out of a speeding ticket by convincing the cop his radar gun was malfunctioning." Despite everything, I smiled. "That was a long time ago." "Yeah, well, Dad said people don't change that much. Which is why I knew something was wrong when I saw that notation in your file." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Aunt Rose, your family tried to change your ticket to a later flight. 3 days later. The air went out of my lungs." "What?" "They told the airline you couldn't handle the information, that it would be too confusing for you. They requested that you be kept comfortable in the lounge until your new departure time, and that under no circumstances should you be told about the change." 3 days. They were planning to abandon me for 3 days while they went to the wedding without me. I thought about Hawaii, about the promises they'd made, about how Michael had looked me in the eye and sworn things would be different, about Sarah's tears when she'd said she never meant to hurt me. Those lying, conniving. I bit off the rest of what I wanted to say. Marcus was family, but he was still young enough to be shocked by his great-aunt's vocabulary. "Yeah," he said grimly. "That's about what I thought too." We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing the magnitude of what my family had tried to do. Around us, the lounge hummed with quiet conversations and the gentle clink of coffee cups. Normal people living normal lives, not dealing with relatives who thought dementia was a convenient excuse to control them. "Marcus," I said finally, "what time does the original flight leave?" "The one they're planning to take without me." He checked his tablet. 2:45. Gate B12. I looked at my watch. It was barely noon. "And they think I'll be sitting here for 3 days, none the wiser?" That was the plan, apparently. Something was building in my chest, not hurt this time, not disappointment. Pure, righteous anger. The kind of anger that had sustained me through raising 3 children, burying a husband, and dealing with 7 decades of people underestimating me. "Marcus," I said, my voice very calm, "how would you like to help your old aunt cause a little trouble?" His grin was pure mischief, just like his father's used to be. What did you have in mind? Well, I said, settling back in my chair, they're expecting to find me here in a few hours, docile and confused and ready to be managed. What if instead, they found something else entirely? I'm listening. Can you get me on that original flight? Absolutely. In fact, he tapped something on his tablet, then looked up with a devilish smile. How do you feel about first class? I feel like it's exactly what a woman with early-stage dementia deserves. Marcus laughed, and for a moment he looked so much like Bobby that my heart ached. Consider it done. But Aunt Rose, there's something else. If we're going to do this, we need to do it right. They can't know I helped you, or I could lose my job. Of course, sweetheart. What do you need me to do? He explained his plan while he worked on his tablet, upgrading my ticket and making adjustments to the passenger manifest. It was simple but elegant. I would leave the lounge on my own in about an hour, claiming I needed to stretch my legs. I'd make my way to the gate and board the flight normally. He'd make sure my name was removed from the special assistants list, and that there was no record of our conversation. When they come back to collect you and find you gone, they'll panic, he said. Airport security will get involved, they'll search everywhere. But you'll already be on the plane. And when they finally figure out where I am? Well, Marcus said, standing up and straightening his uniform, that's when the fun really starts. An hour later, I was strolling through O'Hare's main terminal, my carry-on bag rolling smoothly behind me. I'd left a note in the lounge, just a simple message saying I'd gone to find a lady's room and would be back shortly. Let them puzzle over that for a while. Gate B-12 was bustling with pre-flight activity. Families with vacation gear, business travelers with their laptops and serious expressions, couples holding hands and looking excited about whatever adventure awaited them in Denver. I found a seat near the windows and pulled out my book, another Louise Penny mystery, because Inspector Gamache never failed to provide good company during family crises. But I wasn't really reading. I was watching. At 2 o'clock, they showed up. Michael first, scanning the gate area with that frantic look I remembered from when Tommy was a toddler and had once wandered off in a department store. Sarah right behind him, her phone pressed to her ear, probably calling airport security. Tommy bringing up the rear, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. They didn't see me. They were too busy checking with gate agents, peering down jetways, asking other passengers if they'd seen an elderly woman who might be confused or lost. The first boarding call came at 2:20. Business class and first class passengers, active military, and passengers needing extra time. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and got in line. That's when Sarah spotted me. "Rose," she called across the gate area, her voice shrill with panic and relief. "Rose, there you are. We've been looking everywhere for you." I turned and gave her a little wave, then handed my boarding pass to the gate agent. "Have a wonderful flight, Mrs. Patterson," the agent said with a smile. "Enjoy first class." "First class?" Michael's voice carried across the gate area. "Mom, what are you? How did you?" I was already walking down the jetway, but I could hear them behind me, trying to follow, being stopped by the gate agent who was checking their boarding passes. "I'm sorry, sir, but you're in economy class. You'll need to wait for your boarding group." "But that's my mother. She can't be in first class. There's been some mistake. According to my system, Mrs. Patterson is confirmed in seat 2A. If you'd like to speak with a supervisor about upgrading your own tickets." I settled into my first-class seat with a satisfied sigh. The flight attendant immediately appeared with a glass of champagne and a warm smile. "Welcome aboard, Mrs. Patterson. Can I get you anything else before we take off?" "Just a pillow, dear. I think I'm going to enjoy a nice, peaceful nap." Through the gap between seats, I could see other passengers boarding. A young mother with a cranky toddler. An elderly couple holding hands and whispering to each other in what sounded like Italian. A businessman already pulling out his laptop. And then I saw them. Michael squeezed down the aisle first, his face red with frustration and embarrassment. Sarah followed, clutching her purse like a shield. Tommy brought up the rear, and when he saw me comfortably ensconced in first class with my champagne and pillow, he actually stopped walking. "Grandma," he said, loud enough for half the plane to hear. "What are you doing up here?" I looked up from my book. I'd finally managed to focus on Inspector Gamache's latest case, and smiled sweetly. "Oh, hello, dear. I decided to upgrade myself. The nice young man at the gate said there was space available." "But when did you?" Michael sputtered. "When did I what, sweetheart? Book my own ticket upgrade like a competent adult?" "Oh, about an hour ago." Other passengers were starting to stare. Sarah's face was turning an interesting shade of purple. "Rose," she hissed, "we need to talk." "I'm sure we do," I said calmly. "But right now I'm going to enjoy my flight to Denver. Your seats are in economy, I believe? Down that way." I gestured toward the back of the plane. The flight attendant appeared beside them with that professionally pleasant expression that meant, "Move along, or I'll have you removed." "Folks, we need to keep the aisle clear for boarding. If you could take your seats." They had no choice but to keep walking. As they passed my row, I heard Sarah whisper furiously to Michael. How did she know? How did she figure it out? I smiled to myself and returned to my book. Sometimes, honey, the best revenge is living well. And flying first class while your family stews in economy? That's living very well indeed. As the plane pushed back from the gate, I thought about Marcus, about family connections I'd let slip away, about the kindness of a nephew I barely knew who'd grown up to be exactly the kind of man his father would have been proud of. I thought about Bobby, gone 3 years and missed. About all the family stories and connections I'd lost track of while I was so focused on the drama right in front of me. But mostly, I thought about how good it felt to know that somewhere in this world, there were still people who saw Rose Patterson as a capable, intelligent woman worthy of respect. Even if they weren't the people I'd expected. The plane lifted off, carrying us all toward Denver and whatever came next. In my comfortable first-class seat, with my champagne and my book and my hard-won dignity, I was ready for anything. After all, I had family watching my back. Even if they were the family I'd forgotten I had. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Technology, honey, it'll be the death of us all, but sometimes it works in mysterious ways. After the Denver incident, after Marcus had helped me sail past my family into first class while they stewed in economy, you'd think they would have learned their lesson once and for all. But apparently, some people need to touch the hot stove more than once to figure out it burns. This time we were in Phoenix, supposedly for a long weekend at some fancy resort in Scottsdale. I say supposedly because I'd stopped believing anything my family told me about our travel plans. Experience had taught me to expect the unexpected, and honey, was I right. The morning started innocently enough. We'd flown in the night before, and I'd actually been hopeful. Michael had insisted on booking me my own hotel room. "You need your privacy, Mom." And they'd been almost aggressively solicitous at breakfast. "How did you sleep, Grandma?" Tommy asked, passing me the jam with a smile that seemed genuine. "Are you sure the room temperature was okay?" Sarah fretted. "We can ask them to adjust the thermostat." Even Michael seemed more relaxed than usual. "Today's going to be great, Mom. We've planned some wonderful activities." That should have been my first warning sign. In my experience, when your family starts overselling how wonderful something is going to be, you'd better check your pockets to make sure they haven't already picked them. After breakfast, they walked me to the hotel lounge like a royal escort. The place was all Southwest elegance, terracotta walls, Native American artwork, and leather furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. "We just need to run a quick errand," Michael explained, settling me into a chair by the window. "Some paperwork at the front desk about the resort shuttle. You know how these places are with their procedures." Sarah pulled out a brand new smartphone, one of those fancy ones with a screen bigger than my first television. "We got you this, Rose. An upgrade from that old flip phone you've been using. All your contacts are already programmed in." I looked at the sleek device with suspicion. I was perfectly happy with my old phone. "But this one has GPS, Tommy said enthusiastically. "And a better camera. And we can text you instead of having to call. Much more convenient." Convenient for whom, I wondered, but I took the phone anyway. The screen was bright and complicated, covered with little colored squares that apparently did things I couldn't begin to imagine. "Just stay here and get familiar with your new phone," Sarah said. "We'll text you when we're ready to head to the resort. Should be about 30 minutes. They left me there with a cup of coffee and that technological marvel, and I have to admit, I felt a little intimidated. At 78, I'd mastered rotary phones, push-button phones, and even my trusty flip phone. But this thing looked like it belonged on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. I was still trying to figure out how to unlock the screen when the first text message came through. The phone made a little chiming sound and words appeared. "Any word from security? I'm going crazy here. She's been missing for 2 hours." I stared at the message, confused. "Security? Missing?" I tried to remember how to respond, something about tapping the screen, Sarah had said, and managed to type back. I think you have the wrong number. The response came immediately. Linda? Thank God you're answering. Have they found Mom yet? Linda? I definitely wasn't Linda. I tried again. This is Rose Patterson. You have the wrong number. Please don't joke around right now. I'm scared out of my mind. The airport security said they're doing everything they can, but it's been hours. What if something happened to her? Airport security. My blood ran cold. I looked around the hotel lounge, suddenly hyper-aware of how quiet it was, how few people were around. Through the windows, I could see the Phoenix airport in the distance, and a terrible suspicion began to form. I typed carefully. What airport? Phoenix Sky Harbor. Where else would I be talking about? Linda, please, if you know anything. My hands started to shake. Phoenix Sky Harbor. The airport we'd flown into last night. The airport where my family had supposedly collected all our luggage and arranged our hotel transportation. Another message appeared. The last anyone saw her, she was in the Admiral's Club in Terminal 4. Security cameras show her sitting there for hours, but then the footage goes dark. It's like she just vanished. Terminal 4. The Admiral's Club. I remembered now. We'd had a layover there on our way to the hotel. Michael had insisted I wait in the lounge while they sorted out the rental car situation. I'd thought it was odd at the time, since we were taking a hotel shuttle, but I'd been tired from the flight. With growing horror, I realized what had happened. Somehow, in the confusion of new phones and contact transfers, this Linda person and I had gotten each other's numbers mixed up. She was frantically trying to reach someone about her missing mother, and I was receiving her messages by mistake. But if Linda's mother was missing from Terminal 4, I typed with shaking fingers. Describe your mother. Rose Patterson, 78 years old, gray hair, blue eyes, wearing a navy cardigan and sensible shoes. She's not good with technology, and she doesn't know Phoenix at all. Linda, please, you have to help me find her. The phone slipped from my hands and clattered to the floor. Rose Patterson. The woman this Linda was looking for was named Rose Patterson. But I was Rose Patterson. My mind reeled as I picked up the phone, trying to make sense of what was happening. Two Rose Pattersons, both 78, both lost in airports, both abandoned by their families? No, that was impossible. Unless. I thought about the new phone, about how eager Sarah had been to give it to me, about how Tommy had insisted all my contacts were already programmed in. What if they'd made a mistake? What if in transferring my information, they'd somehow mixed up my contact details with someone else's? Another text came through. The hotel said they never heard of her. The shuttle company has no record of picking her up. It's like she just disappeared. I don't know what to do. Hotel. Shuttle company? I looked around the lounge where I was sitting. Definitely a hotel, definitely picked up by a shuttle. But if Linda's mother had been left at the airport. I typed. Where exactly was your mother supposed to go? The Scottsdale Princess Resort. That's where the whole family is staying. We were supposed to all meet there for my daughter's wedding tomorrow. But now she's missing and the wedding is ruined, and I don't know how this could have happened. Scottsdale Princess Resort. The same resort my family had mentioned. A daughter's wedding. Tomorrow. The pieces clicked together with awful clarity. Somehow, in the digital shuffle of contact transfers and travel arrangements, two families named Patterson had gotten their wires crossed. Linda's family thought they'd arranged for their Rose Patterson to get to the resort. My family thought they'd arranged for me to get to the resort. But somewhere in the mix-up, one Rose Patterson, Linda's mother, had been left behind at the airport, while the other Rose Patterson, me, had been delivered to the hotel. And neither family had bothered to double-check that they had the right Rose. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over my coffee cup. That poor woman, Linda's mother, was sitting alone and frightened in an airport lounge, probably wondering why her family had abandoned her. While I was here in comfort, being pampered by a family that wasn't even mine. Well, that was about to change. I grabbed my purse and headed for the hotel lobby, typing as I walked. Linda, this is going to sound crazy, but I think I know where your mother is. What? How? Who is this really? This is Rose Patterson. The Rose Patterson you've been texting. But I'm not your Rose Patterson. The phone was silent for a long moment. Then, I don't understand. I reached the lobby and spotted a taxi outside. I think our families mixed up our contact information. Your mother is at the airport, and I'm at the resort. We need to switch places. That's impossible. Honey, I typed, climbing into the taxi. After the year I've had with my family, nothing is impossible. Which terminal did you say? Terminal 4. Yes, but I'm on my way. I gave the taxi driver the airport address and settled back for the ride, my mind spinning with the implications of what had happened. How many other Rose Pattersons were there in the world? How easy was it to mix up elderly women when you weren't really paying attention to them as individuals? The taxi driver, a friendly woman about my daughter-in-law's age, glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Family emergency? You could say that, I replied. I'm going to rescue another grandmother. 20 minutes later, I was walking through Terminal 4 of Phoenix Sky Harbor, looking for a woman who was probably as confused and abandoned as I had been so many times before. I found her in the Admiral's Club, exactly where Linda had said she'd be. She was sitting in a chair by the window, clutching a purse that looked remarkably like mine, wearing a navy cardigan that could have been my twin. Her gray hair was styled differently than mine, and her face was rounder, but the expression of resigned sadness was one I recognized intimately. "Excuse me," I said, approaching her carefully. "Are you Rose Patterson?" She looked up with tired blue eyes. "Yes, though I'm beginning to wonder if anyone cares." "Oh, honey," I said, settling into the chair next to her. "Someone cares very much. Your daughter Linda has been moving heaven and earth trying to find you." Her face crumpled with relief. "Linda? But how do you? Where is she?" I pulled out the phone and showed her the string of frantic messages. "She's been texting me by mistake. Our families seem to have mixed up our contact information." "Our families? I'm Rose Patterson too. And if I had to guess, your family dumped you here with promises to come back, just like mine has been doing to me for months." She stared at me for a moment, then actually laughed. "You mean there are two of us? Two Rose Pattersons being treated like inconvenient luggage?" "Apparently so. But not anymore." I helped her gather her things, and we made our way out of the airport together, two grandmothers who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. In the taxi back to the hotel, I used my new phone to figure out how to call Linda directly. When she answered, she was crying. "Is she okay? Is my mother safe?" "She's fine," I assured her. "We're both fine. And we're on our way to the resort now." "Both? I don't understand." "You will when you see us." At the Scottsdale Princess, I walked the other Rose Patterson through the lobby like we were old friends reuniting after years apart. The desk clerk looked confused when two elderly women approached the front desk, both claiming to be Rose Patterson, but the reservation system sorted it out quickly enough. "Mrs. Patterson," he said to the other Rose, "your family has been looking for you. They're in the cactus room." I handed her my business card. Yes, I still carry them, a relic from my library days. "Call me if you need anything," I said. "We grandmothers have to stick together." She squeezed my hand. "Thank you. You saved my life today." We saved each other. After I saw her safely reunited with Linda and a tearful family apology, I made my way to my own room to wait for my family to return from whatever errand had kept them away for 3 hours. I didn't have to wait long. The key card beeped, and in walked Michael, Sarah, and Tommy, looking relaxed and slightly sunburned. "How was your morning, Mom?" Michael asked cheerfully. "Get comfortable with the new phone?" "Oh, very comfortable," I said, holding up the device. "In fact, I had the most interesting conversation." Sarah's smile faltered slightly. "Conversation? With a lovely woman named Linda, whose mother had been abandoned at the airport for hours while her family assumed someone else was taking care of her." Tommy went pale. "Grandma, what are you?" "Turns out there was a little mix-up with the contact information when you set up my new phone," I continued pleasantly. "Poor Linda's mother spent the morning thinking her family had forgotten her, while I sat here wondering why you were all being so unusually considerate." Michael sank into the room's armchair. "Mom, we can explain." "Oh, I'm sure you can. Just like you explained the wrong terminal in New York, and the 3-day delay in Chicago, and all the other creative ways you've found to manage my life without actually including me in it." Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, looking like she might cry. "Rose, we never meant." "Meant what? To abandon someone else's mother by mistake? To mix up elderly women like we're interchangeable parts?" I stood up, my voice getting stronger. "Well, let me tell you what I meant to do today. I meant to help a frightened woman find her family. I meant to show Linda's mother that not all families treat their elderly like inconvenient packages to be shuffled around." I walked to the window and looked out at the beautiful Arizona desert, golden in the afternoon sun. And I meant to decide, once and for all, what I want to do with the rest of my life. "What do you mean?" Tommy asked quietly. I turned back to face them. These people who had raised me to be independent and strong, then spent years trying to convince me I was neither. I mean, I'm tired of being your problem to solve. I'm tired of being managed and tested and tricked. I'm tired of being treated like a burden instead of a person. You're not a burden, Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then start treating me like I'm not one. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? Sarah called after me. I turned back with a small smile. I'm going to have dinner with Linda's family. They invited me to join them. Seems they're grateful to meet someone who actually cares about taking care of elderly relatives. And with that, I walked out, leaving them to figure out what they really wanted from a relationship with me. Sometimes, honey, you have to get lost before you can find your way home. And sometimes home isn't a place. It's the people who see you for who you really are, not who they think you should be. Even if those people are strangers who become family in the span of a single mixed-up day. This one's about the best-worst birthday I ever had, Sugar. 80 years old. Can you imagine? When I was young, 80 seemed like the edge of the world, ancient, decrepit, practically mythical. But sitting in that VIP lounge at Denver International on my birthday morning, champagne flute in one hand and a slice of store-bought cake on a paper plate beside me, I felt more like myself than I had in months. Maybe it was all those airport adventures I'd been having. Maybe it was finally standing up to my family's endless schemes. Or maybe it was just the simple fact that for once, for the first time in longer than I could remember, they seemed to be making a genuine effort to celebrate me. Mom, this is going to be the surprise of a lifetime, Michael had said that morning, his eyes bright with what looked like real excitement. We've planned something incredible for your milestone birthday. Even Sarah seemed genuinely happy, bustling around my kitchen like she used to when the kids were small. 80 years, Rose. We had to do something special. Something you'll never forget. Tommy had driven down from Boulder just for the occasion, and he'd been unusually attentive all week. Calling every day, asking about my plans, making sure I was ready for the big day. It felt like the old days, when my children actually seemed to enjoy my company. So when they escorted me to the airport VIP lounge like visiting royalty, I was touched. Finally, I thought. Finally, they're treating this old bird like she matters. We just need to finalize a few details with the travel agent, Michael explained, settling me into a plush leather chair with a view of the mountains. You know how these surprise trips are, lots of moving parts. Sarah placed the champagne and cake within easy reach. Just relax and enjoy yourself, Rose. We'll be back in 30 minutes, and then the real celebration begins. They left me there feeling genuinely loved for the first time in months. 80 years old, and my family was finally making a fuss over old me. I sipped the champagne, decent stuff, not the cheap grocery store brand I'd expected, and watched planes taxi on the runway below. But as 30 minutes stretched to 45, then an hour, that familiar prickle of unease started creeping up my spine. I'd learned to trust that feeling over the past year of airport shenanigans. The staff kept glancing at me with expressions I'd seen before. The same looks I'd gotten from the lounge attendant in New York, from the gate agents in Chicago. Pity. Sympathy. The kind of looks you give someone who doesn't know what's really happening to them. "Can I get you anything else, Mrs. Patterson?" asked the young woman behind the desk, her voice overly gentle. "More champagne? Perhaps something to eat?" "I'm fine, dear. Just waiting for my family." She nodded, but I caught her exchanging a look with her colleague. The same look medical professionals used to give each other over Frank's hospital bed when they thought I wasn't paying attention. That's when I noticed the wheelchair. It appeared near the entrance to the lounge sometime during my second hour of waiting, positioned like it was ready for use, but abandoned by whoever had requested it. The thing was, nobody in the lounge needed a wheelchair. The few other patrons were business travelers, moving around freely with their laptops and phones. So why was it there? I excused myself to use the ladies' room, partly because I actually needed to, but mostly because I wanted to do some investigating. My detective skills had been getting quite a workout lately. The bathroom was near the main terminal, and as I walked back toward the lounge, I took a small detour. Just a little wandering, the kind any confused elderly woman might do if she got turned around. That's when I heard Michael's voice coming from around the corner, near the customer service desk. Confirmed on the 2:15 flight to Portland. One-way ticket, just like we discussed. Portland. My cousin Eleanor lived in Portland, in one of those assisted living places that looked nice in the brochures, but smelled like disinfectant and resignation. I hadn't seen Eleanor in 5 years, not since she'd moved there after her stroke. "And you're certain she doesn't suspect anything?" That was Sarah's voice, lower and more cautious than Michael's. "She thinks it's a surprise vacation. We'll tell her it's just a visit, let her get settled in with Eleanor, and by the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late for her to make a fuss. My knees went weak. I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. What about her house? Tommy's voice now, practical and cold in a way that made my heart break. When do we start clearing it out? We're heading there as soon as her plane takes off, Michael replied. The donation truck comes tomorrow morning. We'll keep the good stuff, the antiques, Mom's jewelry, anything worth selling, and get rid of the rest. She's got so much junk, Sarah added with a little laugh. Books and photo albums and all those crafts she never finished. It'll be nice to finally get that place cleaned up. Books. Photo albums. 60 years of memories they were calling junk. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to process what I was hearing. This wasn't a birthday surprise. This was an eviction. A deportation. They were shipping me off to Portland like an unwanted package, then dividing up my life like spoils of war. On my 80th birthday, the betrayal hit me like a physical blow, so sharp and sudden I actually gasped. Here I'd been, sitting in that lounge feeling grateful and loved, while my own children plotted to dispose of me. The lawyer said it's all legal as long as we can prove she can't manage on her own, Michael continued. And after all those airport incidents, we've got plenty of evidence of confusion and disorientation. Confusion and disorientation. That's what they called my refusal to be treated like a child. Eleanor's excited to have the company, Sarah said. She's been lonely since her roommate passed. They'd already talked to Eleanor. Already made arrangements. Already decided my future without consulting me. I stood there for another moment, listening to them plan the disposal of Rose Patterson, and felt something crystallize inside me. Not hurt this time. Not even anger. Something harder and clearer and infinitely more dangerous. Determination. I walked back to the lounge on steady legs, my mind already working. The staff member at the desk looked up as I approached. Everything all right, Mrs. Patterson? Perfect, I said with a smile. Could I use your phone? I need to make a call. The first number I dialed was my lawyer, Harold Brennan. Harold had handled Frank's estate and my will, and he knew better than anyone that my mind was sharp as a tack. Harold, it's Rose Patterson. I need you to do something for me, and I need you to do it right now. Rose, happy birthday. What can I do for you? I need you to go to my house immediately. My family is there, going through my belongings without my permission. I need you to serve them with whatever legal papers will make them stop. There was a pause. Rose, what's going on? I explained quickly, keeping my voice low and my eye on the lounge entrance. Harold listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of disbelief. They can't do this, he said finally. They have no legal right to relocate you against your will or dispose of your property without your consent. I know that. You know that. But apparently they think I'm too confused to understand my own rights. Where are you now? The airport. They think I'm about to board a one-way flight to Portland. Don't get on that plane, Rose. I wasn't planning to. Harold was quiet for a moment, probably calculating legal strategies. I'll go to your house right now. If they're really going through your things, I'll put a stop to it immediately. But Rose, you should know, this could get ugly. Family disputes over elder care often do. Harold, they tried to ship me off like unwanted furniture on my 80th birthday. It's already ugly. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and finished my champagne. The cake was too sweet, and the frosting was that artificial stuff that tastes like colored sugar, but I ate it anyway. It was my birthday cake, damn it, even if it came with a side of betrayal. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Harold's voice was grim. Rose, you need to sit down. I'm already sitting. I found them at your house, just like you said. They had boxes everywhere, Rose. They'd already packed up your bedroom, your craft room. There were donation bags by the front door. I closed my eyes. My craft room. All my quilting supplies, my knitting needles, the half-finished projects I'd been working on for years. Sarah had called them junk. But here's the thing, Harold continued. When I served them with the cease and desist order, Michael tried to claim power of attorney. Said you'd signed papers giving him control of your affairs. I never signed any such thing. I know. I've got copies of all your legal documents in my office, and there's no power of attorney on file. But Rose, they had papers. Forged papers with what looked like your signature. Forged papers. They'd planned this for months, maybe longer. While I was sitting in airport lounges thinking they were just being overprotective, they'd been systematically setting up my life for dismantling. What happens now? I asked. Now I file charges. Attempted fraud, elder abuse, theft, we've got a solid case. They can't touch your house or your belongings while this is in litigation. And me. You go home, Rose. You go home and you live your life exactly the way you want to live it. By the time my family returned to the lounge an hour later, I was reading a magazine and looking perfectly content. The wheelchair had mysteriously disappeared. Ready for your big surprise, Mom? Michael asked, his smile as fake as a $3 bill. I looked up at him, this man I'd raised from infancy, taught to walk and talk and tie his shoes. This man who'd just spent the morning packing up my life like I was already dead. Oh, I've already had my surprise, I said pleasantly. Sarah frowned. What do you mean? I stood up and gathered my purse. I mean, I know about the one-way ticket to Portland. I know about Eleanor's assisted living facility. I know about the donation truck coming to my house tomorrow morning. The color drained from all three faces. Mom, we can explain, Michael started. I'm sure you can. Just like you explained all those airport adventures over the past year. Just like you'll explain it to the judge when Harold files elder abuse charges against you. Tommy stepped forward. Grandma, we were just trying to help. Help! I laughed, and it came out sharper than I'd intended. You were trying to help yourselves to my house, my belongings, and my independence. On my 80th birthday, I walked toward the exit, then turned back to face them one last time. You know what the real surprise is? Finding out which of my children actually loves me versus which ones just want my estate. And Tommy, I looked at my grandson, who was staring at the floor. Your grandfather would be ashamed of you. I left them standing there in that VIP lounge, surrounded by the remnants of my fake birthday celebration, and walked through the airport toward the exit. I had a taxi to catch, a lawyer to meet, and a life to reclaim. At 80 years old, I was finally free. The automatic doors slid open as I approached, letting in the crisp Denver air and the afternoon sunshine. Somewhere behind me, my family was probably scrambling to figure out their next move, but I didn't look back. I had better things to do than worry about people who'd confused love with ownership. I had a real birthday to celebrate. Harold was waiting for me at my house when the taxi pulled up, standing on my front porch like a guardian angel in a business suit. Through the windows, I could see that my living room looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. No boxes, no donation bags, no evidence of the systematic destruction that had been planned. Happy birthday, Rose, he said as I climbed the front steps. Welcome home. Inside, everything was back in its proper place. My books on their shelves, my photos on the mantel, my half-finished quilt draped over the back of my favorite chair. They put it all back? I asked. Every last item. Turns out people move a lot faster when they're facing felony charges. I walked through my house, touching familiar objects and breathing in the scent of home. 80 years old, and I was finally exactly where I belonged. So what happens now? I asked Harold. Now you decide what you want to do. Press charges, file for a restraining order, change your will, whatever you think is best. I settled into my recliner, the one Frank had bought me for our 40th anniversary, and looked around at the life I'd almost lost. I want to change my will, I said finally. Everything goes to charity when I die. The house, the money, all of it. Are you sure, Rose? That's a big decision. I'm sure. They wanted my estate so badly, they tried to warehouse me to get it. Let them learn that love can't be inherited. Harold made notes on his legal pad. What about Tommy? He's young, he might come around. I thought about my grandson, about the shame in his eyes when I'd mentioned his grandfather. Maybe there was hope for him yet. Set up a small trust for Tommy's education, I said. But only if he proves he can treat elderly people with respect. Make him volunteer at a nursing home for a year first. That's creative. That's justice. As the sun set on my 80th birthday, I sat in my own living room, surrounded by my own things, making my own decisions about my own life. It had been the best-worst birthday I'd ever had. Sometimes the best gift is the truth, even when it hurts. And sometimes the people who claim to love you most are the ones who need to learn what love actually means. I raised my evening cup of tea in a toast to myself, to Harold, and to the memory of Frank, who would have been proud to see his wife finally free. Happy birthday to me indeed. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like, and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily, and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.